We're just gonna have to try our best and ignore this nest on my head. Hi friends, how are you today? My name is Sarian, and today is Monday, which means it's murder, mystery, and makeup Monday. If you are new here, hi. Every Monday I sit down and I talk about a true crime story that's been heavy on my noggin, and I do my makeup at the same time. If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would highly suggest you hit that subscribe button because I'm here for you every Monday. Well, like most Mondays. So last week we talked about, the weeks are going by so fast and so slow at the same time. Okay, hold on. Last week we talked about, Son of Sam. Son of Sam. I know. Yeah, that was a doozy. This week, I thought I could talk about a little unsolved murder mystery. Unsolved mysteries, not the show, but just in general, is not my favorite thing to do because I'm the type of person who likes closure. I need closure. I just want to go to bed, But I thought I'd sprinkle this one in there because it's actually quite interesting and horrifying. Today's video is sponsored by Hunt a Killer. If you've been watching my videos for a while, then you should know that I love Hunt a Killer. And if you don't know that, that's okay too. But if you don't know what Hunt a Killer is, well, let me tell you. It's a subscription game delivered right to your door. Each box is full of realistic evidence, maps, police reports, and more to help you put the pieces... I can't talk today. To help you put the pieces together and solve the case. But get this. This is so exciting because they're doing a special Blair Witch Horror Edition. Blair Witch. Focus. Okay, Blair Witch. Do you remember Blair Witch? Remember when it was in theaters and everyone was making such a big deal about it, like about how scary it was, and everyone was getting motion sickness in the theater because it was all shaky, but it was like the scariest movie of all time. And it was just groundbreaking. Do you remember? Well, if you remember that, then it's definitely time to look into a more hydrating eye cream because we're getting old. Anyways, Blair Witch, yay. So in this box, the main character needs your help finding her missing son. It's a game, don't worry. You get to investigate the mysterious forest yourself and hopefully reunite the family. This is the perfect game to play alone or with your friends or family. But don't worry, you can also join their spoiler-free online community where people help each other solve the difficult puzzles and talk about what is really happening to the characters and the story. So it's great, if you're stuck like me, because I get stuck every... I thought I would be a great detective. Turns out, this game is really throwing me off, Anyways, so right now, Hunt a Killer is offering some special goodies for those of you who purchase before October 1st, which is right around the corner. And you will get some Blair Witch merchandise and access to an exclusive Ask Me Anything with the original creator of Blair Witch. Make sure to use discount code Bailey for 25% off your first box. I can't say that word, horror, whatever. A big thank you to Hunt a Killer for partnering with me on today's video, but most of all, a big thank you to you guys, because without you, I wouldn't be here. And I know I say that all the time, but hey, it's true. Also, I just want to say, stay tuned this week, because I am going to be dropping an extra or a bonus murder mystery makeup related video later this week, but this time with a special guest. Very exciting. But that'll be up, a little bonus video. But other than that, I will stop rambling and let's get into today's spooky ooky dookie story. I mean, it's not even spooky, it's just horrifying, so there's that. So today's story takes place in Villisca, Iowa. Villisca, Iowa in the early 1900s was a Midwestern town of around 2,500 people. It was said that at that time it was flourishing. Businesses lined the streets and several dozen trains pulled into the depot on a daily basis, I would say. I was there. In 1912, the town built the only publicly funded armory in the state of Iowa, which was used for storing military accessories, machine guns, rifles, pistols, ammunition, parts, etc. And was also used for a training headquarters. The people housed there participated in World War I and World War II, as well as the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Now, this was a really big deal for the town, and it brought more people to the area, and they just took great pride in it all because it was a small town and they're growing and it was exciting. Unfortunately for the people of this close-knit community, their accomplishments became overshadowed by the horrific deaths that had taken place on June 10th, 1912. So a man by the name of Josiah Moore, he was one of Villisca's most prominent businessmen, and his wife Sarah, they had 4 children. Herman, who was 11, Catherine, who was 10, Boyd, who was 7, and 5-year-old Paul. Here comes Saint. So the Moore family purchased their home in Villisca in 1903, and it was considered like a traditional American colonial home that was built around the 1860s. It was a simple home, less than 1,000 square feet, but there were 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. I've always wondered that about older homes. Like, how come there's always 1 bathroom? So I'll give you a little description as best as I can of the layout of the home. Here we go. When you walk through the front door, you enter the kitchen, instantly into the kitchen. To the right, there's like 2 door entryways. One would go to the living room, and then the other one had a staircase that would lead to the upper level. When you enter into the living room, on the right wall of the living room was another door that led to the only bedroom on the first floor. And then if you took the stairs, it would take you directly into the master bedroom where Mr. and Mrs. Moore slept. And across from the master bedroom was another room where the Moore children slept. On Sunday afternoon, June 9th, 1912. The Moore family was planning on attending Children's Day service at their church. The neighbors were pretty close with the Moore family as well, and they had 2 daughters, 12-year-old Lena and her sister Ina, who was 8. That night, Lena and Ina asked their parents if they could, go to the Children's Day service and stay the night with the Moore family. They agreed, and the 2 sisters tagged along with the Moore family to attend church. The Children's Day service was an end-of-the-year Sunday school program. Sarah, she was a co-director at the church, and her children performed little speeches and songs along with the other Sunday school members. When the service ended, parents and kids all hung around chatting until about 9:30 at night. Finally, when everybody left, that's when the Moore family decided they could start heading home as well. The Moore family plus the 2 neighbor children, they all walked the 3 blocks to the Moore's home and went to bed. Just a normal Sunday, The next morning on June 10th, around 7:30 in the morning, a neighbor who was close to the Moore family, this is a different neighbor, not the one with the kids, so she was becoming a little concerned because normally the Moore house would be filled with noise in the morning. Like the kids would be playing outside, Josiah would be working on the farm or tending to his animals. There was no noise, no movement, nothing. It was real suspicious. So this neighbor, she walks over to the Moore's house and she knocks on the door. She's like attempting to wake the Moores, something, right? But no answer. So then she goes around to the back area of the home and she sees that the chickens are still like cooped up. So she lets the family chickens out and she checked on the other livestock because they were all still tied up as well. So the neighbor lady, she's still concerned and she's like, I just don't understand what's going on. So she decided to call Josiah's brother, Ross. She's talking on the phone with him. She's like, hey, where's your brother? Aren't they supposed to be at home? It's very quiet over here. Like, what's going on? He agreed that it was strange because everyone was supposed to be at the house. This is the 1900s, okay? You just don't, like, where are you going? So Ross, he's decided to drop by his brother's home around 8 a.m. to see what's going on. When he arrived there, he was met by the neighbor, and both of them looked around for the spare key to get into the front door. Ross, he finds the key, and he opens up the front door. Ross said that he walked in, and it was very quiet, and then he just, like, keeps walking, and he goes into that back bedroom where the living room's at. So he goes into that back bedroom, and then he sees 2 figures covered with a sheet. And then he also saw what seemed to be blood on the bed frame. So, I'm having deja vu. Okay. Ross comes running out of the house and he tells the neighbor who was waiting on the porch. He was like, something really awful has happened. I guess that's what he said. Probably something more, but we don't know. And he asked her to go call the sheriff. So Ross ends up calling a man named Ed, who was an employee of the Moore family, told him over the phone, like, something has happened at the house. So Ed comes over to the house around 8:30 a.m. And Ross told him, like, I can't go inside. Can you go inside and see, like, if it got any worse than 2 bodies he found? Like, you go see. So Ed goes into the house, and not long after, he just comes running out. And he comes running out to inform Ross that there was somebody murdered in every bedroom. He also mentioned that he found what might have been the murder weapon, an axe. Partially cleaned, it was left leaning against the south wall of the downstairs bedroom where the neighbors' girls were found. Dr. J. Clark Cooper, he was the first physician to arrive at the scene of the crime. According to Dr. Cooper, the group stepped into the living room and then they went into the first floor bedroom, and all they could see was an arm of someone sticking out from under the edge of like a blanket with blood all over the pillows, also like brains and stuff. I don't know. It was very brutal. Dr. Cooper said that he also lifted the covers to see like who it was, and he couldn't even recognize whoever he was looking at or any of the victims because of how badly beaten their faces were. So it was believed whoever had committed these awful murders had left some bizarre touches to the scene. First, there was found a 4-pound piece of slab bacon. Yeah. It was wrapped in a cloth and it was leaning against the wall next to the axe, which was believed to be the murder weapon. And yeah, it was just like bacon that hasn't been cut into slices yet. I don't know. It was just bacon, but it was left there. Also, the murderer seemed to have searched through all of the dresser drawers for pieces of clothing to cover all of the mirrors in the house, as well as any of like the windows and the glass in the entry door. So all of those are covered. On the kitchen table, there was a plate of uneaten food, and get this, a bowl of bloody water. All of the victims were found in their beds. Their heads were covered with sheets, and all of them had their heads beaten in about 20 to 30 times with the blunt end of an axe. Up on the ceiling, there seemed to be gouge marks, believed to have been made by the upswing of the axe. Yeah, so up in the ceiling, there's a bunch of marks. And there was a kerosene lamp that was found at the foot of Josiah and Sarah's bed. A similar lamp was found at the foot of the bed in the room where the Stillinger girls, the neighbors, I forgot to mention their last name because I can't really say it that well, Stillinger. Anyways, where they were sleeping, there was also a similar lamp found at the foot of the bed. Lena Stillinger, she was sleeping downstairs with her sister. Her nightgown had been pushed up and she'd been left exposed, but doctors had concluded that she had not been sexually abused. This is the early 1900s. I don't know if they're able to even tell if that's whatever, but they said that she had not been, so that's good. She still died though. Okay. Anyways, but she also had a blood stain on her knee, or like cut on her knee, and also one on her arm that seemed to be a defensive wound on her arm, which led investigators or detectives to believe that she was maybe the only one to see her killer alive, because everybody else seemed to be asleep, and she really tried to defend herself. Also, one of Sarah's shoes were found on Josiah's side of the bed, but also the shoe was like laying on its side, and there was blood on the inside of the shoe as well as underneath the shoe. The strangest thing of all, well, I don't know, between the bacon and this, was the fact that all of the doors were locked. The only way to lock the doors was from the inside. There was no broken windows or signs of somebody breaking their way into the house. The killer is in the house. No, I'm just kidding. The killer was not in the house that we know of. The killer perhaps maybe had a key. Now let's talk about the possible suspects. At 5:19 a.m., the morning following the murders, a man named Reverend Lynn Kelly, he left Villisca on board the westbound number 5 train. He gets on the train and allegedly told fellow travelers there were 8 dead souls back in Villisca, butchered in their beds while they slept. Now that's fine and all, like you're allowed to talk, right? But at this time, the bodies hadn't even been found yet. Nobody even knew about the murders. I know what you're thinking. It was him. Right? I know. I thought that too, but I don't even know anymore. So this Lynn Kelly had arrived in Villisca for the first time the Sunday morning of the murders, and he attended the Sunday school performance by the church kids before departing early Monday morning. So he attended the church service that the kids all were doing. The more kids. 2 weeks after the murders, he returns, but this time he's posing as a detective and joined a tour of the murder house with a group of investigators. Yeah, nobody knew he wasn't a detective. He just got in there and was like, hey, I'm a detective. And they were like, all right, come on in. Wild times. I mean, you know when you're a kid, this is a side note, you know when you're a kid and your teachers and stuff tell you, like, you could be whatever you want to be in life. I think this is what they're referring to this point in America, because literally you could just be like, hey, I'm a detective. Everyone would be like, yeah, okay, he's a detective. Come on in. And the other guy would be like, hey, I'm a doctor. You know, you could literally be whatever you wanted to be. It's just wild. Okay, cool. So authorities first became interested in Lynn Kelly a few weeks after the murders had taken place, when people were coming forward saying that he had a very questionable past. You see, this Kelly guy would often put classified ads in the local newspaper in hopes to find a young secretary who would work for him, but not just a normal secretary. Nay. Of course not. Preferably one who would be willing to work in the nude. Now, this would get him into some trouble because people were complaining. Mr. Lynn Kelly was the son and grandson of English ministers and had suffered a mental breakdown as a teenager. Kelly had preached at churches across North Dakota, Minnesota, Kansas, and Iowa. He'd been assigned as a visiting minister to several small communities north of Villisca, where he became known as the guy with the odd behavior. Lynn Kelly was considered odd because, get this, he was taking walks late at night. I mean, nobody did that back then. Like, why is he walking late at night? That's so weird. But on top of that, there were many rumors swirling around that he was a peeping Tom, and there were unconfirmed stories that he had tried to convince a young girl to undress for him. He got a bad reputation, obviously, right? Kelly at one point had suffered a mental breakdown, and then he was later diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Now, while he was staying at a mental hospital, that's where he wrote to the Montgomery County DA, and he wrote them a letter saying that he expected at any moment to be arrested for the Villisca murders. A grand jury indicted Kelly for Lena Stillinger's murder, and he was then interrogated throughout the summer of 1917 while in jail awaiting trial. I couldn't figure out why he was just being tried for one of the murders and not the whole family. I couldn't figure that out exactly, but he was being tried, so it is what it is. Okay. But on August 31st at 7 a.m., Lynn Kelly signed a confession. Oh, yes. He signed a confession to the murder, saying that God had whispered to him, quote, "Suffer the children to come unto me," end quote. Whoa, I'm looking like a clown. My bad. He signed a confession saying that he committed the murders and that God had whispered to him, quote, "Suffer to the children to come unto me," end quote. But during his trial, Kelly recanted his confession and his case went to the jury on September 26. The jury deadlocked 11-1 for acquittal. A second jury was brought in, and once again, Kelly was acquitted in November. There just wasn't enough evidence to convict him. There were a lot of talks in the community about other suspects who it could be. Many believe that a man named Frank F. Jones was responsible for the murders. Now, Frank Jones, he was a prominent Villisca resident and Iowa state senator. He ran a store called the Jones Store, and Josiah, Mr. Moore, he worked for Frank Jones at the Jones Store for several years and was considered one of Frank's best employees. Now, people are thinking it could be Frank because, well, one day Josiah just surprises Frank and quits. He puts in his, I don't know if they had a 2-week notice, but he decided he wanted to start his own business. Josiah did. So he leaves Frank's store. Now, literally down the street from his store, Josiah opens up his own store. He's pretty much selling the exact same stuff as Frank Jones's store. Now, rumor has it, Frank was livid. He just felt the ultimate betrayal. My favorite employee just did this to me. I don't blame him. Any of us would be upset, but upset enough to murder? Frank Jones was never arrested. He denied ever being connected to the horrible crime. But it did have a lot of people talking about the possibility, right? You know, a lot of people are thinking, okay, well, if Frank didn't do it himself, I mean, the man had a lot of money. He could have easily paid somebody to commit these awful murders, right? So it was suggested that maybe Frank Jones paid a man named William Mansfield, who was a cocaine-loving serial killer. Oh yes, the plot thickens. A cocaine-loving serial killer? We should do another murder mystery and makeup on this guy. His name's William Mansfield. He loved cocaine. A detective believed that William Mansfield was responsible for the murders because all of the murders committed by this Mansfield guy were done in the same manner, indicating that maybe the same man committed these murders. You know what I'm saying? So in each of the Mansfield killings, the victims were hacked to death with an axe, and also the mirrors in the homes were covered with an article of clothing or sheets. In each case, the murderer avoided leaving fingerprints by wearing gloves, which I know what you're thinking, like, that's not really that big of a deal to wear gloves to a murder. This is the early 1900s. Wearing gloves to commit a murder, just like, it wasn't a well-known thing. Mansfield knew that his fingerprints were on file at the federal military prison. Now, there was a detective who was on the Villisca case who was kind of like piecing it together because this Mansfield guy had just like killed some people. So this detective's thinking, yeah, it's got to be him, right? It's got to be him. Case solved. And then a restaurant owner had come forward and identified Mansfield as the man he saw the morning after the murder boarding a train near the moors, which is like, okay. But that was really all they had on him. Later on, Mr. Mansfield, he won a lawsuit that he brought against the detective who brought on his arrest in the first place. And he was awarded $2,200. But it's kind of funny. Well, it's not funny because this William Mansfield, he was actually like a serial killer. They kind of like released him. And it was like, dude, he just went on to like be more horrible. And they probably shouldn't have done that. But what can we do? I mean, literally, you could be whatever you want at this stage in America, and he chose to be a serial killer. Like, that's so lame. So there's a possibility that a serial killer was indeed actually responsible for the murders. And there was a federal officer who was assigned to the Villisca case, and he announced in May of 1913 that he believed a serial killer by the name of Henry Moore, no relation to the actual family, I guess it was just a common name, but he believed that this Henry guy was responsible for the murders. Just months after the murders in Villisca, well, Henry Moore was convicted of murder for killing his mother and grandmother in Missouri. Oh yes, Henry's weapon of choice, an axe. Henry, just like the other Mansfield guy, I mean, both used an axe, and both seemed to like to cover the mirrors in the windows with articles of clothing, and also covered the faces of the victims with a bedsheet. And Henry seemed to wipe the axe clean after he murdered people. But Henry Moore was never charged with the Villisca killings. I believe the detective on the Villisca murder case, he was just looking to close the case, and he was trying to pin it on somebody. He was like, this guy. Great. There's literally nothing that ties Henry to the murders other than they had a similar style. It was also believed that whoever may have done this might have been living with the family. A family member of Josiah came to the house after the murders and looked around. I believe it was his sister. She had noted that it was a little odd that the family had an unoccupied bed in the downstairs room that had been made but never used. Remember the two neighbor sisters were sleeping in the room, but for the most part, it was pretty unusual to have this spare bedroom in the first place, but most of all, to have a bed made in it. I don't know when a guest bedroom was invented, but at this time, like, it just was odd to have a spare room. Like, what do you do with that? So it was odd. One theory is that the family had expected another person to stay the night with them, or maybe there was another person staying the night with them. That's what the bedroom was for, besides the girls, you know? Also, off from the room where the Stillinger girls slept in. I don't know why I fucking struggle with the most basic words. Anyways, so the neighbor girls are sleeping in the room, and then there was like a closet off to the side of the room, and in the closet there were several bags of cotton batting found inside on the floor, and it looked like there were marks of a person having either sat or stood on all this cotton. It just looked like somebody had been sitting there. Also, in the bed where the two girls were sleeping, sleeping, there was a broken piece of a watch chain, which was believed to have been torn by one of the girls who may have struggled with their killer. But at this time, they couldn't do anything with that, you know? They're like, oh. Unfortunately, nothing really came from it. So some people believe that maybe somebody was actually in the closet and somehow had escaped without going out of the front doors or windows after they committed the crime. Or maybe they were still in the house after they committed the crimes, waited, and then at what point did they escape? I don't know. Several of Villisca's historic buildings have since been demolished, but the Axe Murder House, as it's now known, has been placed on the National Registry of Historic Buildings and is open to tour. Oh, that's right. You can tour or visit the home for the low price of $10. It's still there. You can go inside and look around. I went down a rabbit hole of videos watching people tour the house and talk to the more Stillinger ghosts, which are believed to still be inside the house. It's believed to be a heavily haunted house, right? So I went down this rabbit hole. I was like watching all these videos. People are going there. These are old ass videos, by the way. But people are going there and like filming them trying to talk to the ghosts, right? And they're like, open the door if you are here. And then the like door opens. And they're like, close the door if you are here. It closes, you know? And then some people have even brought their own balls, like kid bouncy balls. And then they'll put the ball on the floor and be like, push the ball if you are here, ghost child. And then the ball moves. I watched so many of these videos. I don't know why, but I did. One thing that bothers me the most is like, I don't know why we as people, or just people in general, are always asking ghosts to open doors, push stuff, or turn stuff on. No. We need to stop with this. We need to be asking more of these ghosts. Ghosts, if you can hear me, can you please let yourself be known by doing the dishes? Like, ghosts could be doing so much more, but instead you're having them push balls and stuff. Like, no. Ghosts, if you are here, make yourself known by vacuuming. In conclusion, no one has ever been convicted for the murders, and the crime remains one of the most horrific, unsolved mass murders in American history. And that, my friends, is the awful story about the Villisca Axe murders. Sorry, Iowa. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. What are your theories? Why do you think they were covering the mirrors and stuff? I would like to hear your theories down below. Rest in peace to the Moore family and the Stillinger girls. It was kind of sad because I couldn't really figure out, like, how did their family feel? I guess if I had more time, I could figure that out. At first, I wasn't sure about this look, but I feel like I'm going to prom. Prom 2002. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead and a good rest of your week as well. A big thank you to Hunt a Killer for partnering with me on today's video. Let me know who you want me to talk about next week. Really quick. So next month, we'll begin our spooky ooky October Halloween month murder mystery makeup edition. I, so far, have not planned anything, so this is not good, but it should be fun. But other than that, I hope you have a good rest of your day, you make good choices, and I'll be seeing you guys later. Bye.